An hospital ambulance carrying the lifeless body of David to a nearby hospital, hoping he would be revived and come back to life. In less than 5 minutes, the Federal Road Safety Vehicle brings in the body of David's father, Mr. Paul, to the same hospital. Here is the full story. Life can be hard. Life can be tough. This is the story of Janeth, a hard-working woman. Janeth had once lived in a home filled with laughter, joy, love. The family was knitted together. They did almost everything as one, in peace and unity. She was a loving wife and a devoted mother of 2. Her son, David, just 18, quiet and hardworking like his father, and her daughter Alisha, 16, lively, thoughtful, and the very breath of Janeth's heart. They weren't rich, not so rich, but at least could afford their meal and a decent life. But they were content with what God had given them at the time, while looking ahead and forward for a better life. Janeth ran a small provision kiosk in front of their home, while her husband, Paul, worked construction jobs in the city, often taking David along to teach him the trade, also make him responsible and useful. Life was not easy, but they were together, and that was enough for them, until everything changed on a rainy Tuesday morning. Paul and David had left early that day for work as usual, but they never returned. It started with a knock on the door, followed by panicked voices and a flood of commotion. Janeth's neighbor helped her to the hospital, where the truth hit her like a storm. David had fallen from the 4th floor of a building under construction. As Paul chased after the men who had lifted his unconscious son to take him to a nearby clinic, he ran blindly across the road. A speedy vehicle ended his life instantly. David was later confirmed dead too. Life can be cruel, so cruel. 2 men in one family died on the same day. Not because of going into drunkenness or doing anything that is not good, but because they went to look for a source of livelihood. The double loss shattered Janeth's world. Darkness swallowed her whole world. The house became a tomb of memories. The laughter, the warmth, all gone. The burial ceremony drained her emotionally and financially. Her once thriving kiosk was now nearly empty. She had sold almost everything to give her husband and son at least a decent farewell. What remains was dust, death, despair, pain, sorrow, agony. In the weeks that followed, Janeth could barely get out of her bed. Pain, grief, hunger heavily in the air. But Alisha, still in her final year of high school, when tragedy struck, stepped in without a word. "I'll help, Mama," she whispered one morning. She swung into action, began to hawk boiled eggs around the neighborhood. She left at sunrise and returned at dark. School had to stop because there was no resources to sponsor her education. She would move around, sweaty and tired, but always smiling. Janeth, broken and frail, watched her daughter with a mix of pain, pride and guilt. Her baby girl suddenly became the breadwinner for the house. While Janeth was struggling to revive herself, she never knew that life had thrown her only daughter into another kind of darkness. That would have been a lesser evil. Alisha is well brought up by her parents. She had a good intention. Selling eggs brought in just enough to buy food and pay off their little debt. But it wasn't enough. On this fateful afternoon, Alisha was tired. While resting under a mango tree, another teenage girl, Vanessa, approached her and struck up a conversation. Vanessa dressed well, spoke confidently, and seemed to have money to spare. "Hello, you're too pretty to be suffering like this," she said. Vanessa introduced herself to Alisha and soon they became close friends, always meeting up every day at that particular spot. Until one day, Vanessa began to introduce Alisha to what she does to keep up the lifestyle Alisha had always looked up to as something she desires. Vanessa introduced Alisha to a world where men paid handsomely for their company. Alisha resisted at first. Her mother's teachings echoed in her heart. But when she saw how quickly Vanessa made money without any form of stress, how easily she could afford what she couldn't even dream of, the temptation became too loud to ignore. Alisha never understood what exactly the relationship with the men means or looks like. But Vanessa made her understand it's nothing, it's just your company. The first time Alisha gave in, she cried afterward. Her pride was taken from her. But the money was good. Guilty at first, but she was paying her bills with the money that came from that evil attitude. And once the door opened, it became harder to close. She continued selling eggs during the day, not because she needed to, but because it gave her the room to keep her mother's suspicion away from her. But by night, she walked a different path, one paved with secret and shame. Janeth, Alisha's mother, had picked up the pieces of herself and began to do some menial cleaning jobs for neighbors who needed her services. So things became easier. Janeth began to notice the signs, the expensive phones, the sudden new clothes, the late returns. She questioned Alisha, who dismissed it with quick lies. "Mother, it's just tips from customers. A friend gave it to me." One lie or the other every day. But one evening, Janeth was curious, so she followed her. Her instinct told her something is not right. Something in her spirit had grown restless. She watched her daughter enter a sleek car with tinted windows, laughing like she don't have a care in the world. That night, Janeth couldn't sleep. She was all awake and noticed when Alisha, her daughter, sneaked back into the house. The next day, she confronted Alisha. She tried to put up her defense and lies again, but this time her mother told her, "Do not lie to me. I followed you. I saw everything for myself." The truth came out. Alisha broke down in tears. She confessed the truth to her mother. Janeth's mother was shocked and shattered. "You're sleeping with men? For money?" Her voice cracked like dry leaves. Alisha stood frozen, unable to meet her mother's eyes. Janeth collapsed into her chair, her chest rising and falling with silent sobs. The betrayal burned deeper than words could reach, not just because of what Alisha had done, but because she had hidden it for so long. Alisha fell on her mother's body and began to shake her just to wake her up. After a while, Janeth resuscitated back and she sank into deep wailing, cried, wailed. "After everything," she said, "after losing my son and my husband, Alisha, you could do this. Janeth thought they had only each other. But now, even that seemed lost. Janeth didn't know how to handle the situation. The deed is done. The girl is already moving out with men, different men. The days that followed were filled with silence. Janeth was so disappointed. Couldn't look at Alisha. Rage and heartbreak battled in her soul. She wanted to throw her out, to scream, to push her for staining the memory of their family, for staining the family name. Alisha, on the other hand, kept apologizing to her mother. At this time, she had realized her mistake. But then, the deed has already been done. Janeth sat down on a fateful day and thought deeply about it. I actually pushed her away. She was too young to go into fending for the family. How could she have handled it? She was too young to go into that. It's my fault I let this happen. How could I have allowed my little girl to be the one fending for the family? She also remembered the memory of her husband and her son, the joy they once had, and the voice in her heart would whisper, "Don't lose the last person you have left." She may have gotten it wrong, but remember, she is still your daughter, the only one you have left. Janeth began attending church services again, not for religious purpose, but for sanity. She sat in the last pew, cried silently during worship, and listened to sermons about forgiveness. Anytime she hears about forgiveness, she would ask herself, how could she give it when her heart was so torn with pain? She started journaling, writing letters she never sent. Letters to David, to Paul, and finally to Alisha. She finally realized that healing wasn't about forgiving the betrayal, but understanding it. She understood Alisha was a child trying to become a woman so fast. Janeth had failed to see the burden she carried. Janeth realized Alisha, her daughter, had also been bleeding silent for the loss of a father and a brother, and this is her own way of showing her grief. One evening, Janeth asked Alisha to sit with her. Janeth said to her daughter, "I'm not angry anymore. I'm just hurt, deeply hurt." Alisha began to weep again. "I was just trying to help. I didn't know any other way. I'm sorry, mother." They spoke for hours about the loss, the pain, the guilt, and the silence between them. Janeth didn't offer immediate forgiveness, but she had held her daughter for the first time in months. And in that embrace, something shifted. In an effort to heal properly, they both agreed to see a counselor. They began rebuilding slowly. Alisha gave up the lifestyle, returned fully to school, and with help from a local support group, Janeth reopened her kiosks again. The community that once whispered behind their backs, judging them, now saw their strength. Friends brought goods, neighbors gave small loans, and together, mother and daughter began again on a fresh note. Months later, Janeth stood in front of her small mirror brushing her hair when Alisha walked in. "Mama," Alisha said, her voice steady, "I'm sorry for everything." Janeth, her mother, turned, tears glistening in her eyes. "I know, my child, and I forgive you." It was not dramatic. No music swelled, but the weight lifted. It was a moment of relief. For the first time in months, they sat together under the evening sky, shared a meal, and laughed. It wasn't the same as before, but it was new. Janeth's heart felt lighter. She wasn't the same woman she was before the tragedy, but she had found a new strength she never knew she possessed, the strength to forgive, to heal, and to love again. Janeth now volunteers with young widows, offering comfort and sharing her story, teaching women how not to neglect their teenage daughters. Her kiosk has grown modestly. Alisha is in school doing well and also running a small catering business, using the boiled egg business as her stepping stone. Their bond is now rebuilt, not as a perfect picture, but as something more profound, a testament to resilience, love, and redemption. They still cry sometimes, they still miss David and Paul, but they've learned that healing doesn't mean erasing the pain. It means choosing to live despite the pains. And knowing this, they found peace. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy our story, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. Bye.